Welcome to Goldfish on Games, and I'd like to honour Lazy Game Review's Edutainment Month, which happened in April, which we've just missed. And I want to talk about British institution Fun School. If you got a computer in the late 80s to early 90s, you most likely got a copy of Fun School. And that's because they released 7 main games, each with 3 versions, and 4 spin-offs in those 14 years. That's 25 titles. And they released those across 11 systems: the ZX Spectrum, the Amstrad CPC, the Commodore 64, the Atari ST, Amiga, MS-DOS, RISC-OS, BBC Micro, Amiga CD32, the Acorn Electron, Windows, and CPW. You had to be very small for Fun School not to release a title on you. The version I have here is Fun School 2. This is the 8 and above version. Each Fun School came with 3 versions, and they tend to be banded with age, but each release had different ages, but they always had the same mascots. The youngest, the teddy bear, the middle was the frog, and the older got the robot. Now, on the back of the box we've got the typical marketing blurb, but we have multiple screenshots. And they picked probably some of the better ones they could for the platforms, such as the ZX Spectrum, so it didn't look too bad. Inside the box we get quite a bit, so let's take a look. So we have our floppy disk with the entire game on it. Remember, this is also a game that came on cassettes for a lot of the platforms. Along with that we have an advert for the next version of Fun School, which just folds out. Now, this is actually quite cool, because it gives us an idea of how the game has progressed in the years since Fun School 2 came out. You can see the graphics look significantly better. It also gives us a hint of how popular Fun School was, because just in the UK, they sold 170,000 copies of Fun School 2, this one. That is huge for an education title. So it also has some great marketing blurbs and the like. Oh, you've got to read what the press and the parents thought of Fun School. Next up we have the teacher and parent guide. Now, this was your cheat sheet to completing the game, and it should have been removed by the parent or teacher. We then have registration guide with this interesting tidbit that if you helped design Fun School 4, you could win £300 in cash. And finally, we have the instruction manual, or as it should be dubbed, the instruction foldout, that gives you information on all the games. It has this nice little clause at the back: Fun School 2 is not copy protected, so you can make backup for everyday use. Please do not abuse this facility by passing copies to friends. Don't copy that floppy. So with this, and this, and this machine, let's go try it out. Fun School at its heart is a collection of minigames. Whether or not these minigames are actually educational or even fun, we'll have to work out as we go. So let's try one of these out to start off with. I think that bridge might be a good one to go with. This is a pick up the pieces and use it to fill the hole style of puzzle. This game is surprisingly harder than it should be due to the fact the controls work against you. You can either use the keyboard to do everything, or you can use the mouse, which can't do everything. You can pick items up with it, you can move them around in a really awkward fashion, but you then have to use the keyboard to rotate the pieces or to put them down. You can really see the port from the 8-bit systems coming through in this game. On top of that, the pieces are quite finicky to put in place. Sometimes it's actually easier to use the mouse to get them over to the space quickly and use the keyboard for the fine positioning. It's just awkward all round. But thankfully, when we complete the puzzle, we get a nice little jingle and a jig from the robot. When you complete a game, you get a keyword, which is used in the final game, Escape. Each of the games will ask if you want another go when you complete them or when you fail, and you can also change the difficulty level, up or down. Well, I feel that we need to move on, and next up, I think, might be Unicorn Quest, because why not? We're going to have to do it at some point. This is probably the most classical edutainment style title in this bunch. You have to get the bird, the worm, and the apple from one side of the screen to the other. Obviously you can't leave the worm with the apple, or the bird with the worm, so you have to keep bringing one back. It's that classic travelling across the river puzzle. They make this more of a game by giving you a time limit, which is indicated by the really badly animated fire that's currently spreading around the forest. This, unsurprisingly, is another game that suffers from poor controls. Moving your guy around the forest is surprisingly clunky, as he gets stuck in weird positions on weird trees. I'm not sure whether or not it is easier to use the keyboard or the mouse for this title. And yay, we have another keyword, apple. Next up, it's time for me to face my fears with Guardians. And by fears, I don't mean the really comical monsters, I mean spelling. I am quite badly dyslexic, and this is an anagram game. Ugh, I am so bad at these that you have no idea. But I was mostly able to get through it before getting stuck on some and having to actually require the teacher and parents guide. I should feel ashamed, but I'm not. I really am not. With another password in hand, it's time to move on. And this is starting to look more of a let's play rather than a quick review. So let's take a quick look at some of the other levels. The Mystery Machine is a classic code breaker style puzzle, where you have to try and work out what the symbols actually mean. And once you've got those, you then have to do what the code tells you. This is actually surprisingly quite cool. Code Boxes is all about converting a binary number to a regular number, and to be honest, it's probably the easiest of all the games for me because I've been doing these sorts of conversions since high school. Though strangely, it's not something I need to use all that often at work. Here we are, the game from the back of the box, Souvenirs, which requires you going from country to country, trying not to spend all your money on souvenirs, and then getting back to the UK at the end. This is a game that would be significantly easier these days with all those countries having the same currency. And we come on to the final game, Logic Doors, which seems to be a maze game, but you need to use the keys you got in your inventory to move on, apart from the fact that you have to drop the keys to pick up new ones. And half the time you do that, the game will kill you. Or not really kill you, but give you a game over. It really seems at random, and the game just feels bugged, and I just didn't enjoy even trying to work out how to play this game. And finally we have Escape, where all those keys that you've been collecting become useful, as you need to use them to move on through this level. It's pretty straightforward, you just gotta guess what you need for each of the pictures that it shows. And there's a way of trying to prove that you've actually played the game and you know all the code words. And there we have it, Fun School 2 for the Amiga. Now, I'm not entirely sure of what the educational merit of some of those games were, or how entertaining some of those games were either. To be honest, I don't think Fun School 2 was the best version. I personally played Fun School Spelling Fair far more, and that's because I'm dyslexic, and so anything that helped me with my spelling was an instant play for me. And so hopefully I can get myself a copy of that, and I'll be able to review it in another video, maybe in a year's time, for the next Edutainment month. So until next time, I've been the Goldfish, and this has been Goldfish on Games.